with something else. Okay, I have that it is 6:30, and Arturo did get on. He's been trying to get on. Jennifer, would you like to introduce our speaker tonight?
Yes, our speaker tonight is Javier de León. He is the Park Superintendent at Estero Llano Grande State Park, and he is also the advisor to our Yemen chapter as well as the South Texas, or as well as the RGV chapter. And he sent me his bio, which was sent out to everything, but to everyone when we advertised this meeting. But one of the things that I liked best was that he always thought he would enjoy being in the outdoors, but didn't have the opportunity growing up. So as soon as he got a car, he got out of town and found his love of nature. And now he's here, park superintendent of a state park, and here to share with us about 100 years of Texas state parks. So Javier, thanks for being with us tonight.
All right, thank you all for having me. Can you all see me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I think I'm gonna share my screen here a little bit. Let's see, let's go back. Okay, so like I was saying real quick before I start, thank you all for having me. It's just great. Yes, it's always a nice day to it's always a nice time when I get to talk about parks. But real quick, let me just finish my thought. If you find a baby bird, don't try to raise it yourself unless you know what you're doing. And you know, it's always a good idea to find a box, put it up in a tree, and hope the parents can take care of it. So let's see here. Oh, on the internet. Okay, can y'all see my screen okay?
Yep, we're seeing the slideshow. I mean, the whole program. There it goes.
The whole thing. All right. Okay, so and this is 45 minutes.
You can go longer if you want.
Well, so it's okay. Real quick, I got 50 slides. So
45 minutes with times for questions.
There you go. So so yeah, once again, thank you all so much for having me. It's 2023 is a big year. The Parks and Wildlife has been planning this year for the last 2 years, so it's exciting to finally see it here. And you know, it's nice to talk about you know, the 100 years of state parks, but I do want to focus on the history of the closest state parks to us down here in the valley. There's plenty of information about all kinds of parks all over the state. Like Garner has a rich history, Enchanted Rock, you know, some of the battlefield parks, and most of them got switched over to Texas Historical Commission. But I kind of wanted to focus on the valley. And this isn't an exhaustive history because I'm kind of sharing the load between, you know, 4 parks. Each of these parks could probably be its own presentation, but let's get started. Okay, so how it all began. So state parks, there was kind of a windy road to get to Texas state parks, and it began with a Fish and Oyster Commission, and it ended up as Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, which state parks is a division of. So back around the late 1890s, there was a big concern about oyster fisheries, about oyster beds around Galveston. And in the late 1890s, Texas tried to come up, well, they passed their first wildlife laws, their first laws trying to limit, you know, how much people can hunt and fish and things like that. A year after those laws were passed, you know, 99% of all the counties in Texas claimed exemptions to those state laws. So, you know, obviously just passing laws wasn't going to do it. So a Fish and Oyster Commission was developed. To the Fish and Oyster, a game department was added, you know, in 1907. And eventually, you know, while Texas was trying to figure out, you know, how to create game wardens and how to create game laws, you know, and I think the first game wardens in the state, there was like 10 for the whole entire state or something like that. While all that was being figured out, a need was created for parks around the state. I'll get into that why in a little bit, but in 1923, Governor Neff here, who's third from the left, he got a group of people together because he thought that people should have places to travel to, you know, in the early 1920s. So he created the State Parks Board, which is great. There is a group of people that could go and actively seek out donated land that the state could own and eventually turn into parks. But they had very little power because the legislature basically gave the okay to create this entity, this board that would seek out donations, but they never gave them any money at all. So you exist, but you can't really do anything. Eventually that changed once the CCC came aboard and they actually did a lot of work. After the State Parks Board was created, 1951, the term oyster was dropped from the Wildlife Agency's name. And in 1963, the State Park Board and the Game and Fish Commission were merged into Texas Parks and Wildlife. And state parks, like I said, is one of the many divisions, one of 13 divisions within Texas Parks and Wildlife. We're going to see a lot of pictures in the presentation. I really like this one. I've always wanted to do that because I've heard armadillos can just jump vertically. So I would like to know how the gentleman caught this armadillo so adeptly. So I do want to say women played a large part in developing state parks. Before the State Parks Board was created, in 1907, Daughters of the Republic of Texas, they came together and they persuaded the legislature to buy, you know, historic battlefields around the state. So San Jacinto became the first battlefield purchased. Other battlefields followed, or places that were important to Texas's history. This picture here is Washington on the Brazos, which was a state park for many, many years before it got transferred to the State Historic Commission. In 1919, several historic parks were put under the State Board of Control, except for the Alamo, which was managed by the Daughters of the Republic of Texas. These first battlefields and important historic sites became the first state parks. So Washington and the Brazos was one of the first. Some of these other Gonzales Battlefield, things like that. A lot of these changes happened in the first part of the 20th century because the way people were interacting with the landscape was changing. Before people had cars, people really didn't wander far from home unless they had, you know, a specific reason to, and it wasn't for leisure at all. So you see here, these gentlemen, they have their chuck wagon, and these four guys look like they're about to eat like enough beans for 50 people. I don't know what's going on here. Maybe they're cooking for the guys out in the field, but this was a typical scene. If you're going to camp, you camped right along the road where you were traveling or where you were doing your business, but it wasn't for leisure. Once people started getting cars, you know, the people started, you know, wanting to take their cars wherever they could. So car camping was, you know, started to become very popular. And looking for these pictures, there was a lot of photos of people camping with their cars. This looks like a lot of fun. It looks like they're in a nice place. But, you know, there was a need for destinations across Texas. So in 1923, when Governor Neff created the State Parks Board, he later said it was one of his most important achievements. And one of the first things that he did, Governor Pat Neff, is he set the example and he donated some of his property. I'll get to that. So Neff and the board members from the state park boards went all across the state trying to get donations for beautiful spots. So following the wishes of his mother, Neff and his family set an example by donating 250 acres that was part of their family land. And basically that donation became Mother Neff State Park. So a lot of people say that Mother Neff is the first state park. There's some state parks that preceded it, but this was kind of the first step in creating specific places as parks for people that are run by the state of Texas. This is kind of a neat quote from Governor Pat Neff in a long speech that he gave when he was talking about parks in 1925. And a lot of it's still relevant to today. So the governor asked the State Park Board be charged with the duties of soliciting tracts of land of any size suited to public purpose, where people of this state and of this nation might go and forget the anxiety and strife and vexation of life's daily grind. One, I didn't know that daily grind existed in 1925, that phrase. Two, I wish we used vexation a lot more than we do today. You know, people don't use vexation enough, but yeah, I feel vexation a lot sometimes. So like I said, you know, getting parks created was kind of slow, but there were some pieces of land that were getting donated. But again, the legislature never gave the State Park Board money to do anything with the land until, you know, during the Great Depression, FDR created the Civilian Conservation Corps, which is basically, it was a group of young men that needed to be put to work. And so the government put them to work all over the country building infrastructure. So here is a good example. It was kind of run like the military, young men. Here's a good example here. This is the, I don't know what's called, the refectory, or it's maybe the main meeting hall at Bastrop State Park. So here are the young men building it. And this is what that looks like, what it looks like today. They didn't just build buildings, they built culverts, they built roads. If you've ever visited Highway 4 going to Inks Lake State Park, that road was built by the CCC. And a lot of care is taken in preserving those structures. Out of the 29 parks that were built by the CCC, it's a lot of the popular ones. Garner State Park, the place where people gather to dance, that's built by the CCC. Oh man, there's Goliad, a lot of CCC stuff there. And what's really interesting is the CCC, they had very skilled workers, you know, as the leaders for these young men. So the foremen were very knowledgeable, and a lot of times they would use local materials, like whatever they could find in the local environment, they would figure out how to use it to build things. So for example, very nice. Donna put something interesting in the chat. So for example, at Goose Island, I think, there's a CCC structure built there, and it's built out of shellcrete. So they took the oyster shells that are, you know, along the coast, and they mixed it with concrete, and they basically used shells as part of their concrete. So it's called, I think it's shellcrete or oystercrete. Lake Corpus Christi, that's in South Texas too. That was another CCC park. After the CCC program ended, you know, I don't know, I think in the early 40s, there's really little interest in developing more state parks. And it got so bad that Governor Connolly in the early 60s said that state parks were, you know, to the point of, they were so ill that it might as well just be dead, because it was just a really bad situation. Not enough energy and time was going into parks. So starting in 1963, the legislature got really behind creating more parks. And between 63 and 1988, many parks were developed. Some of these are parks that are very popular today. Enchanted Rock was one of them. I think that was opened in the mid 70s. Guadalupe River is another one. McKinney Falls State Park in Austin. So many parks were developed around this time. Lost Maples, another park. I think that one opened late 70s as well. Okay, so like I said, many parks all over the state. You know, there's a lot of parks that are no longer state parks. They're historic sites now, but right now we have 89 state parks that are open and about 4 or 5 that are waiting to get open. This year is our 100th year anniversary. The State Parks Board was created in 1923. Now it's 2023. To celebrate this, there's a lot of stuff going on. So one thing that I wanted to feature is this book, The First 100 Years. It's a nice coffee table book. It's really neat information in there. There's a whole chapter on women and their role in creating state parks, which is pretty neat. And it doesn't sugarcoat things. Let's just put it that way. But to find out what I mean, you'll have to read the book. Lots of events throughout the year. Many state parks are doing special 100-year events. Bentsen is having their 100-year event on September 23rd. Estero, we're having ours on November 18th. Falcon just had theirs this past Saturday. It was thundering during the event, but they still had it. About 80 people showed up. Resaca had theirs, I think, 2 months ago in March. So there's special publications. There's special exhibits. This one, unfortunately, is already over, but the Bullock Museum in Austin, it's a great museum if you've never been there. They featured art from different state parks. Some of the art you can still see on their website. Bentsen had an artist come down and they did a really nice painting of Bentsen, and OJ, the manager of Bentsen, was invited up there to unveil the exhibit. New partnerships. So, a lot of us that were hearing about preparations for the 100-year anniversary, if you can't partner with HEB, like, are we really from Texas? So thankfully, HEB decided to partner with Texas State Parks this year. Lots of different, things planned with HEB. I don't know if you guys have seen the commercials about parks. There's a new product line that's more like natural called Field and Future that they're promoting. They've also donated money to state parks, and they have these photo contests going on. If you Google Texas State Parks photo contest HEB, you'll get to their website. Basically, every season they're having different photo contests, and the prize is $100 HEB gift card. And of course, there's different events. So our 100 More Years celebration for a lot of the state was this past Saturday, May 13th. And because of weather, a few parks had to reschedule their events. So ours moved to May 27th at 7. So at 7 o'clock, we're going to have s'mores. And then if anybody wants to stick around, from 8 to 10 will be our night hike. This picture is from Mother Neff State Park. They decided to go the healthy s'more route. So I don't know how personally I feel about that. S'more without chocolate, I don't know. I mean, I'll try it. I'll try it. Yeah, I'll try anything once, right? If you come by, you can get one of those cool 100 S'more Years stickers that's near the top of that picture. Okay, so this is pretty neat. This is a special park pass. It's a centennial pass that they have for this year. I put the information straight up from the website. To find this and how to apply, you can basically Google Community Engagement Centennial Pass State Parks. This pass is basically for groups that are not normally in parks. A big theme for celebrating 100 years is trying to get new people into parks, people that have never been to state parks or not usual users of state parks. So we can, try to get all of Texas visiting their local parks all over the state. So who can get a CEC pass? Like I said, they're trying to promote people that historically haven't used state parks too much. Individuals with annual household income below 50,000, or individuals with physical or mental disabilities. There's also, if this could be for a local group, or a local club where people can get this pass, and the pass holder plus up to 20 people can come into the park for a year with this pass. So hopefully you guys can pursue that further and get some of these. I personally, I don't think we've had anybody bring this pass in yet. So yes, so if you have an idea, I've been trying to approach a local running group because they use the park, but not a lot. But I think this would be a great way for them to, use the park more often. As long as they don't start running all over the place during the birding festival and all that stuff. But anyway, there's balances with visitor groups. Okay. The nitty gritty. Let's talk about, sorry, go ahead.
Javier, do master naturalists get admitted under the CEC?
I think, that's a really good question. Normally, it depends on the park, but normally if the master naturalist as a group is going to visit the park, I usually try to push for a fee waiver. Of course, yeah, unless they've charged you guys and I didn't know about it. But because Master Naturalist is a Parks and Wildlife run program, I would assume that it'd be covered under our fee waiver rules. But yeah, if the Master Naturalist group wanted to, offer more of a recreational visit, I don't know. That's kind of weird because if Master Naturalists as a group are coming to a park, I would assume that they'd be doing AT or a field trip where somebody's learning something, or volunteering. But yeah, for example, there's an A&M group that wanted to come over, like somebody with A&M Health that want to encourage physical activity, encourage people to be active. This would be perfect because then they could apply for this. Yes, so yeah, so there's a lot of different ways that you can think of this. Somebody in the chat wrote about pre-service teachers. Yeah, I think that'd be a great way. All right, I've gotten your wheels spinning here. That's great. Yeah, no problem. Okay, let's talk about Falcon State Park. So I'm going to go from west to east. I'm going to go from west to east, starting from Falcon, then Bentsen, then Estero, and then Resaca. So Falcon State Park, it's basically, this state park is a design you see in a lot of lake parks all over the state. There's a main entrance up here near the top, and then there's a couple of camping loops and a couple of trails, and it's next to Falcon Lake. So, there's a lot of history around Falcon Lake. Some quick facts. I'll get to the history in a little bit. This land was first leased by the state from the International Boundary and Water Commission, which would eventually build or help build the dam. So the state had the land since 1949. The dam was built and first used in 1953. The lake was allowed to fill, do its thing, and fill as planned. And eventually, they were able to plan where the park should go, and they opened the park in 1965. That's one of the older state parks in the valley. 576 acres next to a 28-mile long lake. So it's a small portion with lakefront property. 2.8 miles of trails, 98 campsites. Those are, anything from only water campsites, primitive campsites, to full RV hookups and 50 amp pedestals, and water and all that kind of stuff. 12 screen shelters with no AC, 12 cabins with AC, and of course a group hall with a kitchen. Why is it named Falcon State Park? So, well, it's named that because it's next to Falcon Dam. Next, just kidding. So, you know, as I've mentioned before, a lot of history in the valley that kind of doesn't get talked about too much. But you know, in 1746, 1740s, Jose de Escandon was commissioned as the Viceroy of New Spain to basically help colonize this area. That was Nuevo Santander. I do have to say, in all of the valley, there's many, you know, Native American folks of many different tribes. And it's a rich history, but yes, as history happened, basically the Spanish came to colonize this area. So during that time, there's lots of small ranches and small towns being developed. Around 1800, Mr. Jose Eugenio Ramirez established a ranch on the north bank of the Rio Grande and named his headquarters Ramireño. On this drawing, this was done probably in the 1830s. This is a Berlandier drawing. This shows the river from Camargo, which is near Rio Grande City, across the river from Rio Grande City. You can see most of the ranches are on the south side of the river. You see my pointer? And this map goes from Camargo. This is the Rio San Juan coming from Mexico, going through Mier, the town of Mier, and ending in the town of Revilla. The left side of this map goes from the town of Revilla all the way up to Laredo. Ramireño was right on the other side of the river to Revilla. It's not on this map because it was, I guess, really tiny. So he settled around that, but throughout the 1800s, many Native American raids came by, and when the Mexican government had the Mexican Revolution, not a lot of military protection went on. Eventually in that area, Mr. Ramirez, who was probably a direct descendant of the other Ramirez, opened a general store, and a post office was established in 1915, and he changed the name of the village to Falcon in honor of Mr. Eugenio, the first Ramirez's wife, Maria Rita de la Garza Falcon. So this lady, Falcon, was a wife to the first Ramirez that established the first ranch there. After Falcon Dam was completed in 1952, this town, along with Revilla, which was by then called Guerrero, was also flooded when the lake was created. So folks from the town of Guerrero moved and they formed Nuevo Guerrero. Old Guerrero is underwater most of the time. And on the US side of the river, folks from old Falcon Village, they went to New Falcon, and other folks moved to Falcon Heights and other places around there. So that's where the name came from Mrs. Maria Rita de la Garza Falcon. Around this time, there was no dam along the river. So, you know, the river was pretty wild river, untamed. You know, when there was heavy snowfall, you know, coming from upriver, the river would overflow its banks. For this reason, the river, you know, in Spanish, it was called Rio Bravo because it was a wild river. It was a much stronger river before it was dammed up. And, you know, at that time in the 1800s, the Rio Grande could support riverboats going all the way up to Roma because it was just a deeper, bigger river. This picture is from Brownsville after the river overflowed its banks. Eventually, both the US and Mexico came together and they built Falcon Dam. This is a picture of the dedication ceremony from 1953. You can't really see him, but this is President Eisenhower and President Cortines. So I think this is a gentleman here. The Mexican president, the US president gathered together in 1953 to inaugurate Falcon Dam. Falcon Dam it's a hydroelectric plant. and it's got two hydroelectric plants. One hydroelectric plant serves the U.S. and the other one serves Mexico. So it's half and half. Lots of cool information online. This is a screen grab from, I think it's called The Moving Image of Texas, I think. It's a website with lots of videos, but this is a 15-minute video of the president visiting the valley. And it's pretty neat because the landscape looks pretty much the same, fewer people, fewer buildings, but everybody showed up to see the president. This is a picture of the hydroelectric plant. So I think I left out one tower. There's a middle tower and then three towers on the US side and three towers on the Mexican side. And like I said, it's a 28-mile long lake. So at the very bottom, here is Falcon Dam right here. This little tiny little blue ribbon is the river, and this is Falcon Lake. Falcon State Park is right around here. This is a photo. I mentioned that the town of Revilla, which eventually became the town of Guerrero, was underwater once Falcon Lake was created. So this is an old town, most likely going back to the mid 1700s. This photo in the middle is a picture of the town square before the village was flooded. And the pictures on both sides, picture on the left is the town square after, when the lake is deep enough, it's completely underwater. If the lake levels go down, you'll still see part of the town. And Richard Moore did a cool video a while back about old Guerrero when the lake level is pretty low. This is turning into a talk about the lake itself. The lake is vital to the Rio Grande Valley, but let's focus on the park. The lake itself could be a whole other topic for a general meeting. Falcon State Park, it is in the valley, and something that I didn't mention, and I don't know if it's in this map, but if you're ever at Falcon State Park, around sunset, if you look towards the west, you can see the mountains, some of the mountains in Mexico. Those are, oh man, somebody remind me the name. Oh, I'll think of it later, but you can't see the closest mountain range.
Sierra Madre.
No, Sierra Madre is more Monterrey. There's another group of mountains. Sierra Picachos, I think it is. Man. Anyway, you can still see the mountains. They're pretty close. There are bears and other things in those mountains, and it's a lot closer than we think. They're visible on a clear day from Falcon. Because of that, sometimes Falcon, as evidenced by Barry Knoll's photos, sometimes does attract, or it is a neat place to see some wildlife wandering over from Mexico. For example, back in 2007, this Tilia hair streak that was found by Barry Knoll was photographed at Falcon State Park in their butterfly garden. Hadn't been seen in the U.S. since the 1930s. Since Falcon has become a gigantic lake, it's got some really good fishing and lots of YouTube videos where you can find, monster bass like this one caught in there. I'm not a fish person, so I don't know how native these fish are. That's another topic for another day. Oh man, well, you guys, this is supposed to say Bentsen State Park. All right, moving to the east. Real quick, let me see if there's anything left about Falcon. Visiting Falcon is a pretty neat experience because we talk about the different habitats in the valley. Falcon is pretty arid. The trees are a lot lower over there, and that's a great example of just seeing a different habitat not too far away from us. Going over to Bentsen, I know a lot about Bentsen because I worked there and I helped with their 50th anniversary when they turned 50. Benson's pretty interesting. The dotted lines are the park boundaries. That's the Bentsen proper, which is about 580 acres. And then on the right, where the headquarters is, and the parking lot, and a little field north, well, to the right of this, there's another 200 and some acres that were later donated to the park. So 767 acres total, 584 donated directly by the Bentsen family, 183 acres donated by Mike Rhodes, Rhodes Development in the early 2000s, 7 miles of trails, 5 campsites that are water only. And I included some of the first U.S. record birds, some of the many that have been found at Bentsen. These are basically, most of these are one time, the only time that these birds have been seen for some was at Bentsen State Park. I included this picture. Bentsen, when you're going into Bentsen, it's got a loop. You go here from the headquarters, travel down, and there's a fork in the road right here. Right here is Ebony Grove, and this is what's in this picture here. Ebony Grove is basically why the park is there. The Bentsen family, it was several brothers in the Bentsen family, and they came down from, I can't remember, Ohio, Missouri? I think Missouri. They came down to help develop much of the valley. So around 1925, Elmer and Lloyd Bentsen, they decided that they were going to donate part of this property to the state. Why did they want to donate it? Elmer here on the left was bulldozing through this area as they cleared land around, southwest of Mission. I think they owned 25,000 acres back in the early 1920s. Well, they're bulldozing right up to the river for cropland. And Elmer Bentsen got to Ebony Grove, and he told his brother, Lloyd, he said, those ebonies that are right there along the river are the prettiest ebonies I've seen down here in the valley, and I just can't bring myself to bulldoze those trees. So the family decided at first to keep these 500 acres as, their personal park, basically, their personal property to recreate. Eventually, they said, you know what, this should be a national park, and they tried to give it to the federal government. The federal government wasn't interested, but the state was interested. So they donated the land to the state in 1944. Unfortunately, the state didn't do anything with it, and the brothers eventually got pretty frustrated, and they were almost going to sell just out, take it back from the state because they had not fulfilled their promise to create a park, and they were just going to sell the land outright. Speaking, by the way, Lloyd Bentsen is the Senator Lloyd Bentsen's dad. So the brothers were frustrated, and they said they wanted to sell the land. Along came Alton Bentsen, and Alton really liked the area, and he couldn't stand for it to get sold. So he offered to develop it himself as a park, and he would serve as the first manager for the park and not get paid, basically. So his wages, I think there were $300. And I don't know if it was $300 a month or $300 every 2 weeks, but his salary, he donated it back to the park and basically to help build the park. Alton Bentsen, this town of Alton is not named after Alton Bentsen, but in a lot of the history written about the Bentsen State Park, Alton gets left out. So I did want to mention Mr. Alton Bentsen here. The state park eventually became a state park, but not until 1962. But before that, Alton allowed, when he was the first manager in a park that wasn't open yet, he started allowing Boy Scout troops to use the park. So Boy Scout troops and Girl Scout troops, like the one here on the right, they've been using the park since 1952. And eventually, in 1962, the park, the park got some paved roads, a couple of buildings built, restrooms and things like that, and it became Bentsen State Park. So the picture on the left here is from Easter Sunday, I think in 64, 63, something like that. And then the picture on the right is kind of a typical time at Bentsen with, campsites set up and all that kind of stuff. Mission adopted the park, and before driving was cut off in 2004, before vehicle access was not allowed anymore, basically, from what I hear, the entire town of Mission would show up to Bentsen State Park. Not sure if anybody from Mission is on here, but one of these days I'll ask Luciano and some other folks about his times at Bentsen back then. Since very early in Bentsen's history, it was known as a bird wonderland. So this is an article from the Texas Parks and Wildlife magazine from 1965, and even back then, Bentsen was thought of as a birdland. This picture on the right is within Bentsen State Park. The habitat of Bentsen has changed over the years. There's a lot more Spanish moss back in the day because, Bentsen was younger. The whole habitat was used to being flooded by the river, and in the last 60 years, it's just changing drier and drier without that constant flooding and stuff. A couple more pictures of people in bell bottoms and people riding their bikes through Bentsen. From these photos are from the 70s. I do want to mention there's lots of folks that work in these parks. Sometimes the maintenance folks get overlooked. This is Mr. Salinas. He worked in the park for over 20 years. He eventually became the assistant manager, and his son is the lead maintenance person at Bentsen, and he's about to retire soon. So there's kind of neat to see that multiple generations there. Okay. Eventually, after the year 2000, began the next chapter in Bentsen's history. So this picture on the top is where the park headquarters now sits. So this photo was taken from the irrigation canal. The farm fields on the left were donated to the park by Mr. Rhodes. So this picture was taken, I think, in the year 2000, and the picture below was taken in 2004. About 2004. And this photo is the grand opening of Bentsen State Park with a brand new headquarters and a lot of important people sitting up there on the stage. Okay. Part of Bentsen's history is flooding. Even though Falcon Dam was built in the 50s, the pictures on the left are from a flooding event in the 70s. Bentsen is between Falcon Dam and Anselduas Dam. And by design, if there was too much water, the area right next to the river could be used to store water, basically. So these photos on their left, they say it's 1971, could have been after Beulah, or could have been another, big rain event, big water event, but you'll see a speed limit sign, 20 miles per hour, mostly covered up. The pictures on the right are from the flooding in 2010, and these photos are kind of in the same areas, and you can barely see it, but there's a speed limit sign, 20 miles per hour, and you can just see the top of it. If y'all are familiar with Bentsen, this is the Hawk Tower is right up this this stream right here. At the end of this stream is the Hawk Tower back in that area. Okay, Estero Llano Grande State Park. This park is a little bit younger. First opened in 06, 231 acres, 5 miles of trails, no camping, but we do have a camp thicket area with over 100 beds. Some cool fact, I put Estero evident truths because I like alliteration. But some of Estero is owned by U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and a tiny portion of the park is still owned by the city of Weslaco. Why is Estero Llano named Estero Llano Grande State Park? Again, back in the 20s when people were developing the area a lot, this is you've probably seen postcards like this before. Around Weslaco, a gentleman whose last name was Withers wanted to create a town site right near the intersection of FM 1015, which is that gray line right here, and Business 83, which is this right here. So around that intersection, he planned for this gigantic town site called Llano Grande. Unfortunately, this plan is from 1907. Unfortunately, he ran out of money, so he was not able to create that. But the name, which is probably an old name for this area anyway, stuck. Eventually, around 1916, the U.S. Army developed Camp Llano Grande. So they built this camp hospital in that area. They had, it's not in this picture, but right up the street, if we were to do a 180 from this building, we'd be looking at the railroad tracks near presently where the AgriLife or the Texas A&M offices, research offices are. Gentleman sitting on the Llano Grande sign. This is a really cool postcard from the National Guard camp at Llano Grande. You can see different things here. It's not that great a quality. I'm not sure where the mountains coming from. Oh no, those are tents or mountains. I can't tell. The only reason I included this is because of what's written on the postcard. So this gentleman writes to Miss Mary Beatty in Omaha, Nebraska, that this is the way the camp looked the first days of camp, except it's hotter, or only it's hotter. Yeah, so that's the way it looked, only it's hotter. So yeah, so pretty neat. So I don't know the exact number of folks that stayed here, but there's a bunch of soldiers that lived in this area. They came down to this area because there was some unrest around 1916, 1917. This photo, I'd really like to know where exactly it was taken, but looks like it could be at the park. What we do know happened at where the park is now was used as their equestrian kind of area where people would, these folks would keep their horses, was at Estero Llano Grande State Park or on that property. You can see, oh yeah. You can see on the bottom right picture here, the gentleman jumping over the structure or jumping off a ramp or something. What you notice in the back is the lack of trees. It's just a large grassland. Llano means field or grassland. Grande means big. And Estero means like a wet area, estuary, which could be Lake Llano Grande, which is right in that area. So Estero, so it's a wet area next to a large grassy area. So one of these days, much of Estero might look like that large grassy area in the future. This is what Estero Llano Grande looked like right before it became a park. This is probably from the 1980s or it's probably 1980s. I don't think it's from the 90s. I don't know if you recognize any features of the park. Let me go back to the map real quick. So just look at this curve on the road here. We're going to go, that's FM 1015. So you see where this curve is? If you've been to the park before, which I know most of you have, the parking lot is right here. The headquarters is right here. And the wetlands are in this gigantic farm field. This was a Lakeview RV park. So many folks lived in this neighborhood, and eventually the owners, they didn't really tell the folks living there they wanted to sell it. They sold it to the city of Wesco. City of Wesco sold it to the state, and the deal was that folks can stay there, but they just couldn't pass down their property to their kids, and eventually everybody moved out. We still, if you go to Estero and you see the RV, the mobile home that's still sitting there, that's hopefully going to get moved out this year. Where that mobile home sits is City of Wesco property. Once that mobile home is moved out, then the last property transfer will happen, and the park will be mostly belonging to the state. I do want to say there's a lot of local folks. You know, how did the park come to be? A lot of local folks wanted to support a new state park in Wesco. A lady who worked with Parks and Wildlife, Madge Lindsay, and a gentleman, Ted Eubanks, they had the idea for the World Birding Center around the late 90s. Initially, the World Birding Center was going to be the World Birding Center, one location. I'm over my time. I'm going to do another like 3 minutes, or 4. I'm going to blast through Resaca. Originally, it was going to be one World Birding Center, but then things happened. The plot thickened. Basically, there was some legislative maneuvering, and at the 11th hour, the World Birding Center was moved to Mission, to Bentsen State Park was going to become the World Birding Center. There was some machinations, I guess, going on in the Texas legislature, and what resulted is the World Birding Center headquarters could be in Mission, but instead of the initial $9 million investment, a $35 million investment was going to be created. And basically the folks that applied for the World Birding Center, like Edinburgh, Roma Bluffs, Brownsville with Resaca de la Palma, they were going to get each a World Birding Center site. So that's how it went from 1 to 9. So Wesco got its state park. This is a photo of the park headquarters being built. These are the wetlands you see in front of the headquarters then, and what it looks like now. In 2012, 12 acres of land was added, which used to be Camp Thicket. So if you look at this line, this all belonged to the Methodist Church, and now it belongs to the park. It's got sleeping facilities for over 100 people, but the main reason it was purchased, I hear, is because of this habitat. This habitat, as far back as the 50s and 40s, was never grazed. So it's thought to be intact, never grazed habitat, which is a rare thing in this area. Combined with the thicket, the tropical area, the wetlands, and then the drier is the tropical area, the wetlands, and the drier mesquite habitat on the east side of the park, lots of diversity. Okay, let's see how fast I can do this. Hopefully you all are awake. Resaca de la Palma. This is an interesting one. You'll see why. Resaca de la Palma is the biggest state park, 1,200 acres, opened in 2008. 8 miles of trails within the park. No camping. This area belonged to basically most of this property was used for farming for many years. Eventually, it was purchased by Parks and Wildlife, and they used it for many years between 1977 and the early 2000s when it became a park. So really, the history around Resaca has a lot to do with hunting, which is funny because it eventually became a World Birding Center. But it's part of the DNA. And I think now they've struck a good balance between the hunting needs and the hunting needs or the hunting tradition that a lot of people have in this area. They have found a balance between that and wildlife watching. And before, it was a little bit sketchy how they would do hunting while people were birding. But when people go hunting, it's a special white wing season, so it's basically 2 main weekends that the park is closed for hunting. I will say, I tried to look up why this place is called Resaca de la Palma. If you Google Resaca de la Palma, or if you look for information about it, you're going to find a whole bunch of stuff. It's very confusing. Perhaps it was named after the Battle of Resaca de la Palma, which is fought in 1846. The actual location of the battlefield, which I highly recommend you visit and learn about in Brownsville, is several miles east of the park. But Resaca de la Palma does have Resacas, a 64-acre Resaca with palm trees throughout. And I shrugged because I guess that's why it got the name. Like I said, hunting is part of the DNA there. Hunting here at the state park, there are some rules that need to be followed. But this place, it's lots of security around. There's no drinking involved, and people have to follow all the state's rules when they come in. Lots of hunters use it. I think it ranges anywhere from 600 to 400 hunters, sometimes up to 800 hunters. So it is pretty popular. Of course, it rains for most of the time. This is one of the rare years that it did not rain during the opening weekend. So, but it is pretty neat. Lots of smiling faces those couple of weekends. Eventually, it was opened as a state park. This is, I think, from the grand opening in 2008. It is nice to see people using the park. And something unique about Resaca de la Palma State Park is, it's one of the last state parks opened in the state. It's one of the youngest from 2008. So really a lot of the history is still being made. I ran out of time, but I was trying to find a picture of a birding team. It's a big sit team for the Great Texas Birding Classic. They call themselves the Hot Wings. And that group, they didn't do very well, but they saw lots of birds at Resaca. And I wanted to include that picture because it had a lot of master naturalists in it from the RGV chapter. This was around 2014, but Resaca is so large, and there's just lots of little pockets of unique habitat that I think there's a lot left to find there. A couple of years ago, they had a great wintertime with lots of rare birds, and I just think that there's a lot of potential to explore the park. It is a little bit of a challenge. When you go to the park, they don't allow vehicle access, so you have to park here. Ebony Trail is one of my favorite places because it's short, but if you have the time and energy to either take a tram tour, get dropped off, and then picked up later, or take a bike, there's a lot of cool places. Usually this spot, hold on, Hunter's Lane, I think this one, usually there's always water here. So it is pretty neat. And like I said, it's a lot left to discover and a lot more history to be made there. I think that's it. Hopefully I provided some history for you guys. Y'all have any questions? Thank you.
Great job, Javier.
All right, thanks.
Very informative.
All right. Yeah, I was looking down, scrolling down. Enjoyed the presentation. There's several comments there. Wonderful. And I even got a text from some people that were on Facebook.
Okay, great.
So,
I'm trying to open the chat here. Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm looking at the chat. Yeah, there's a gentleman who made a Bentsen State Park specific book. I don't know if you can still buy the book, but you can download the PDF, and it's pretty neat.
it's pretty cool. It's very interesting reading.
Yeah. Yeah.
He goes outside the history of just the park and talks about the region a little bit. So it's free download.
Yep. And this being master naturalist, I do have to say, if anybody, oh yeah, Jose Oliva says it's a Pikachu mountain. It's very nice. Out of Falcon. Oof. Like I was saying, with this being the master naturalist group, I don't know if it would count. I mean, I think it would because it does enhance our learning. But if anybody would like to put together these histories of the parks, I went to our archives up in Austin recently, and they had very little about the parks, about the state parks in the valley. Maybe just a few documents, a few folders. So yeah, I think if anybody would like to dive deep in a rumor that I've heard about Resaca de la Palma is, in Ken King's and not Ken King, in Richardson's book, and now in Ken King and Richardson's plant book, they mentioned poison ivy being in the valley, and I heard that the location of the poison ivy is at Resaca de la Palma State Park because it used to be part of it used to be a nursery at some point, and that's where the poison ivy escaped and still lives there to this day. Is that true? Who knows? I didn't get a chance to talk to Ken King and ask him if he knew, but things like that, it's really interesting, and hopefully they don't just get lost to history and stuff. It would be nice to get all that stuff down in a meaningful way.
Javier,
Yes.
I've got another question. The state of Texas, I guess they never acquired the Alamo, but they attempted to, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, one of the first acquisitions was the barracks at the Alamo. So I think that was the Daughters of the Texas Revolution. But yeah,
Daughters of the Republic of Texas. And
There you
yeah,
go.
I do think the state got ownership of it, but the daughters kept the collections, and they're housed somewhere else now.
Interesting.
I
Yeah,
remember
the
there was
question.
a lot. There were quarrels between the state and the daughters. I don't know
can
what's
imagine.
happened since then. So interesting stuff, though.
Yep. Yeah. Mara asked if hunting at Resaca was just carried over because it used to be a hunting ground. Yes, that's the case. It was for many years a wildlife management area managed for hunting doves. So they did have some crop fields that they would plant specifically for doves. Once it became a park, the crop fields stopped being planted, and but they still allowed hunting of dove in there. So yeah.
Javier, there is a poison ivy at Resaca, and it's off the Ebony Trail.
Really?
Yes, I've seen it.
Hey Keith, hey man, nice to see you on here. Keith, you are you still volunteering over there or not really?
I haven't volunteered in a long time.
Okay, well it's nice to see you here, and man, right off of the Ebony Trail, so it's easy to see.
Well, it's back in the woods.
All right, all right. Well, there's a story there, I'm sure. Did somebody point it to you, or you found it by accident?
Oh,
Found it the hard way.
no, actually, there was somebody they were checking on it. The plant guy, the guy that wrote the book.
Yeah,
King
maybe
King.
Ken King or Dr.
Yeah.
Richardson.
Yeah, King. He come out and they were checking on it, and I kind of followed him out there, but I seen it out there. I come from Florida, so I know what the poison ivy is. So
Very cool. Yeah, very cool. I think. Oh man, next time we're out there, it'd be nice to see it. I've only seen poison ivy once, and that was way out of Texas. So, all right, that's all I have. If y'all have anything else,
We could have a field trip, poison ivy field trip.
yes, it's a hands-on,
All right.
hands-on field trip.
Well, very good. Thank you so much. And you know me, I'm always interested in the history and prehistory, so I've seen a lot of those pictures of there was actually a railroad stop for Llano Grande noted on one map that I'd seen. Uh, so it got that far, but it just didn't go much further. Okay. With that, we can proceed to our business portion of the meeting. Everybody can catch their breath for a second. All right. So I'll call the business meeting to order, and I've gotten everybody's names written down, I think. Javier, you'll be glad to know we had 47 participants this evening that were on for your program, and that doesn't count the people on Facebook. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it looks like we have at least 6 watching us on Facebook right now.
Yeah, I know, and Pierre and Kathy are on there. So we appreciate all that participation. Okay, we'll resume the business meeting. I attached the treasurer's reports. Gail had done those before she left on her um, cruise, and she's still on her cruise, but she did double check and say that um, nothing had changed since she submitted that report, so that should be current and accurate as of the end of the month. So if anybody has questions, we'll file those for audit. And if you do have questions, don't hesitate to um, contact Gail. I don't think no, oh, she is here tonight. I see her. Gail, do you have anything else to report? I don't see her coming on, so she may or may not have good connection if she's on a cruise ship somewhere. But we'll file those. Oh, there's, nope. All right. So minutes of the last meeting, we had no minutes because we had just the April graduation, really no business um, to conduct. So we didn't take any minutes of that meeting. So that was quick and easy. Our programs, Jennifer, do you have some information on future programs?
So need to finalize speakers, but I think we have some fun stuff coming up this summer, bugs and cats and some fun things like that. So hopefully we'll get those dates locked in and have more information.
Okay. And Ronnie, as our membership committee chair, I know I saw him somewhere here. There he is. You're you're still muted. Or did you? Yep, okay. We can get good. We can barely hear you.
How about now?
A little bit better.
How about now?
That's better. Yes. Thank you.
This thing's been acting up all day. Okay. I can share really quickly. So, hi everybody. Hope everybody is doing well. Here we go. Everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So our report for April of this year, we are staying strong with 150 members. That's 114 active members. We still have some that are considered, I guess, kind of like in training from previous classes that haven't initially certified, but we are working on upping those numbers. So with 150 strong, we had 34 unique members logging service and AT hours last month, and that was through 24 different opportunities. So looking at that further, when we look at the volunteer hours, that's 14 opportunities, and that's 33 members. and for a total of 429 and a half hours. So that's a nice number for the month. And for AT hours, we have 25 members that logged in their AT hours through 9 opportunities, accounting for 75 and a half hours of learning. When we look further at those service hours, that's $17,532.12 worth of impact at the current rate, and giving us a year-to-date impact of over $70,000 for our efforts. And for the advanced training hours, we have, I think there's like one entry that's a little bit off, but that's 415 hours total, and a half almost hours total for the year in terms of what our chapter has spent learning and growing stronger. When it comes to those service hours, again, anytime that you are entering in hours that can have impact data added to them, please do so. That's super helpful to have, not just for my love of looking at data, but for the states to look at impact too. So we had 209 adults impacted and 235 youth. And I'm sure the numbers will go up a little bit more now that we're looking at the end of the school year and there's a lot more activity in terms of field trips and good stuff like that. So remember, impact data is just sitting there in the opportunity, just a little bit of a scroll down and entering as best you can. It doesn't have to be an exact number. Your best guesstimate is better than none. And that is me.
All right.
Any
Thank you, you.
questions?
Appreciate that. All right. And I did want to make the announcement. I don't remember if I saw Jim Jerry here tonight or not, but you know, he had worked closely with Ann this last year on the classes, and so at our May board meeting, we appointed him the 2024 class director. So he will be in charge of that for this next spring's classes for our chapter. So congratulations, and thank you very much for offering to serve in that capacity, Jim. River, did you have some awards and recognitions?
Yes, I do. I'm putting the names on the chat for whomever is taking minutes. They can write it down and everybody can see them. So for the 2023 recertifications since last month, since the 11th of April, we have Jennifer Reckerick, Stuart Warren, Velma Schmidt, who happens to be one of our 2023 trainees, Robert Hernandez, and Mary Lewandowski. So there's also a few of you that are very close. Most are missing some AT hours, so maybe after tonight, no, we'll have a few more. Then the 100-hour milestone, again, Velma Schmidt reached that milestone. And the 250-hour milestone is Stuart Warren. And that's all I have for today. Congratulations, everybody. And I encourage everyone to report anytime you volunteer or watch something with AT, so we can up our numbers. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, and congratulations, everyone. We have a communications committee. Anita, as director of that committee, do you have any announcements or something you'd like to say about your other blogs or articles?
Well, I have a couple of things. Joseph, did you get the PowerPoint I sent you today?
Yeah.
Oh, and here it is. So a couple of things. The second edition of Miniature Gardens in the Cracks of Sidewalks is out. So check Anita's blog on our website chapter website. And I do want to thank chapter members Velma Schmidt, Janice Mingus, and Kate Krause for sending me photos. And those are featured in that blog. So that was fun. Thank you. Also on the website, look at the all articles link for the Texas Master Naturalist article published in the McAllen Monitor, and that was about offshore storms provide for interesting beach combing. So beach critters, sea beans, and stuff tossed ashore are all game for anything to write about because they're native. And that brings me into the newsletter, and we've had a call for articles for the summer issue, and the deadline is May 20th for the Chachalaca quarterly newsletter. And I know 17 of our chapter members attended last month's writing workshop, and I'm hoping some of your enthusiasm is still with you. So I'm looking forward to seeing some contributions from the South Texas Border Chapter members for that summer issue. So please email me, and my email is on the slide, if you have any questions or want to run something by me. And do remember, artwork and photography is encouraged as well. And incidentally, Dharma Weber from our North Sister Chapter, the South Texas chapter, attended the workshop, and she went back to Corpus and has arranged with the editor of the Caller-Times to provide nature news stories for the newspaper. And they are allowing a 300-word article with one photo, and I think that's a great start for them. So on the next slide, if Joseph, there you go. Thank you. I recently sent an all hands out in the chapter email about 2 ongoing projects for this year. And one is the storytelling Texas Master Naturalist 25th year project. And the other one, I mentioned the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department photo contest, which is celebrating 100 years of state parks. So please feel free to let me know if you participate, especially in the TMN storytelling project, or if you'd like some help or have some questions about that. The photo contest is the TPWD baby, and pretty well self-explanatory on that website. And lastly, if anyone is interested in being on the communication team, please send me an email. And again, my email address is down at the bottom of that slide. And thank you, Joseph. And that's all I have, and we'll turn it over to Joseph next.
Okay, well, I didn't get anything prepared on website reports or anything for this month. Been kind of busy with the City Nature Challenge. I don't have the your report or the schedule up. What am I talk about that now, or that's later?
Now go ahead and talk about it now if you'd like.
Okay. I guess I'll share my screen again. I can't see. All right. All right. So this is what we had in 2022, and you'll see how close we were to San Antonio. Just we almost could have taken them over in species. They really went out this year. So pretty much every city that participates a lot increased their numbers, and we increased our numbers too. But due to the big storm and everybody dealing with cleanup and no power, we didn't have much of improvement. Our numbers are very similar. This is 2022 again. There's our observations and our species and total observers. It nearly identical this year. We did have a few more observers who have been posting a little bit since the official cutoff, but as long as the stuff's there, that's the important part for citizen science. So I'm glad they're still updating. I think we've added 6 new people since the official deadline, but the stats here just keep on adding up over time. Let's see. Oops, it's not it. Okay, you guys still seeing the iNaturalist screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is our top 5 observers. Robert Gaitan of the other chapter, again, most species and most observations. Of the top 20 contributors, we put up 100 less total observations than last year. And since our numbers are pretty similar, that means the rest of you guys did more comparatively than last year. Even though the all of those top people, we all increased our numbers on species and observations. I don't know how we did it. I guess we had nothing better to do with no power, but all of the rest of you guys contributed a lot. And just before the thing started, I suggested if every TMN member posted at least 20 observations, just imagine the numbers we could have. And a whole lot of you guys did that. More people reached the 20 number than we had last year. And in the top 20, I think 18 of us in observations are TMN members between the two chapters. And then the whole list is just full of TMN members, which is great. And some of those other members that are way up there at the top, maybe someday soon will be TMN members too. Let's see. We had, yeah, I think at least 34 of the top 60 had over 20 observations. And in the top, about 105, I think, people had over 5 observations, which is an improvement over last year of, I think, 13 people. So it's catching on slowly, and hopefully next year we can do even better. But it was definitely fun, even though we didn't have, we had other things we should be doing at that time, but it could take our mind off things. And we got our chapter field trip was one of those days, which turned out great. We got to do iNaturalist with a bunch of other master naturalists, which was fun.
Okay. Well, thank you for that report. I knew you would, if anybody in this group was looking at those statistics, you would be. So thank you. I was glad to see my name. I did have over 100 observations again this year. I really thought I was going to get out more the last couple of days, and it just didn't manage it. But thank you everyone who did work on that. And maybe we can have a concerted effort for some of us to go out and plan some field trips that incorporate that. I'm not sure how many went on the Martin Refuge field trip and how many recorded things from that trip. That would be interesting to compare the list of attendees with those who contributed.
No, we had, I think we had, no, I'd have to be guessing at the numbers right now, but it was a pretty good number, but it was the morning right after the storm, so a lot of people had to stay home and deal with that.
Or they weren't sure if it wasn't canceled because of the weather and the heavy rains.
Yeah. But it turned out to be good. They didn't have much wind damage there. They got lucky. And maybe we'll end up, Becky will set us up with another trip out there sometime soon.
Yes. All right. Well, if you're good with your report, speaking of Becky, we'll let Becky give her report. And the one thing I had was to remember to let Joseph say something about the Martin Refuge trip. And go ahead, because I know you have several things that I did not itemize.
Well, let me go back to Joseph and Judy. I think Judy's here. If Judy can say maybe how many members did attend, because she was helping out as well. I don't know if she's going to go online. But I'm sorry, I was not able to attend that field trip. I was out of town, but I'm very impressed with how many people were able to show up, given that the storm had blown in right beforehand. So once again, that was the field trip for April. I really want to maybe mention the upcoming field trips. June 10th is going to be a field trip having to do with bats, and Javier is going to be in charge of that. It's going to be in Mission. We'll get more information. It's June 10th, but we'll post information as it comes in. July is Moth Week, and Joseph is going to be heading that one up, and that's going to be July 22nd through the 30th. And once again, more details. Joseph, do you want to speak on that one anymore?
Yeah, I
As
could
to where it
talk.
should-
There's usually at least 3 or 4 different parks having moth nights, and I'll probably be at all or most of those. Last year, Quinta had one that was really popular, had a lot of the public came to. Estero always has one. Bentsen usually has one. So there's a lot of choices. May see different moths at different places. So yeah, you can come out to several of them.
Okay, we'll have more information becoming available with that one. In August, we've been sort of brainstorming some field trip possibilities. The idea being that hopefully it'll be somewhere air conditioned. And we're still working on that one. We have some, if you have any suggestions, let me know. I'll be happy to check them out. But once again, we're working on August. September 16th is going to be Shells, and Anita is going to be helping or spearheading that. Anita, do you want to say anything about it? No. Okay. Oh,
Not at this point, but
okay.
I did send you a pretty lengthy email with questions. You got that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll be working on that. But Anita and
We'll
I,
just,
we're going to be jointly working together
right.
on that one. And it will end up being a social on the bay. In other words, after we have the field trip, which may include some people from the island who are active in the Shell Club. Maybe not. We're still working on that. But we will end up with a social once again for everybody to get together right before the convention in October. Now, I do want to switch over to one point. Speaking of AT credit, because I know everybody, some people are working on their AT credit. I received an email today from the Native Plant Project, and I included them with the latest email compendium of AT credit. They said that their link sometimes work or wasn't working. So you may want to go to the Native Plant, I'm sorry, I misspoke. The Native Plant Society of Texas, the Native Plant Society, not the Native Plant Project. That one is on May 23rd. You may want to go to their website and maybe double check the link, because once again, they said the link they provided was not working. So that's on May 23rd. And then finally, this is going to lead into Susan. And Susan, I just emailed you information on this. I'm very excited, very, very excited that we will be offering a volunteer, just a pop-up, quick volunteer opportunity at the Danny Cook Cancer Center. For those of you who haven't worked at this project, it's our chapter project, and it is a wonderfully rewarding project, I think. That particular volunteer opportunity will be this coming Sunday, May 21st at 1 o'clock. It's going to be very quick. All we're going to do is plant a couple of plants, not very many, but a couple of plants to fill in where some of the plants have been damaged or for whatever reason haven't been able to come back. But once again, it's this Sunday, 1 o'clock. You can also find out about the hummingbird feeders. That's a volunteer opportunity that is very easy, a wonderful, whenever you want to, um, uh, uh, whenever you have time to complete it, it's a wonderful volunteer opportunity, and maybe learn a little bit about the chapter project. So once again, I'm sort of creeping in on Susan's report, but I just now sent her the email before the meeting. And that's all. I think that's all I have.
Okay. And Susan, I guess you can talk about our volunteer.
I was just reading the email she sent me. Literally, just got it, 7:21. Actually, this has been an unusually quiet week, so I have been working a little bit. Well, this is only Monday. Spent a little time this afternoon revisiting some of the ongoing volunteer opportunities because I haven't been getting any notices for about the last week. So Becky, I am interested in learning more about your the hummingbird thing that you mentioned because I have not seen anything about that.
The should I, Donna, is it okay if I?
Yeah, go ahead and take a minute. Yeah.
The chapter project, what I loved about the chapter project is that it's not necessarily ongoing where we have to maintain the garden. The center maintains the garden. Sylvia Castleman and I were there today to just sort of instruct, really Sylvia, not I, to instruct the maintenance people how to maintain the plants correctly. But the only ongoing volunteer opportunity that we have is that outside the infusion room where the children receive their drip lines, the chemical drip lines, we have 3 hummingbird feeders that are that the children and the staff can view. In the past, I maintained them. There were some other volunteers at one point a couple of years ago. With COVID, they asked us not to come to the center because it was so delicate, with the children going in. So now we're able to go back to the center. What's beautiful about it is that anybody can do that volunteer opportunity at their leisure because it's outdoors. I give the gate code, and so if you have a Sunday afternoon or a Monday evening or a Thursday during the day, it's at your opportunity, in your schedule to go and do it. And all I do is I clean the hummingbird feeders out. Really what I do is I replace them. I have 2 sets of 3, and you just leave one off, pick the other ones up. And it's once again, it's a wonderful opportunity because it's not set to a particular time. It fits a schedule. It fits your schedule.
And that Vanny Cook is over in McAllen, close to the hospital area, right?
Correct. On the email that Susan just received, I have a map. It's on the expressway. So for anybody coming east or west, if you stay on the expressway, it's easy to get to. It's between Rio Grande Regional Hospital and 2nd Street. So it's on the expressway. Rio Grande Regional is to the east, 2nd Street is to the west. And you can also enter it from Ridge Road. I think it's well, no, I think it's Ridge, but you can, there are various ways. Once again, I included a map in the email that I sent. And it's, the other thing, if I can mention this, is we hope to maybe have a field trip there. I don't know yet, but Donna, the Master Gardeners have volunteered to help. If we do have a field trip, they are volunteering to help us accommodate any visitors. So,
Okay. All
and
right.
that's all.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Susan, if you have anything
I
else.
was just gonna say, I don't have anything else that needs attention tonight.
Okay. Yeah, she was sending Susan that information on contact and stuff if you want to come out Sunday afternoon, so you'll know who to contact and let her know you're coming. I don't know that Mary Baker was going to make it. I know she is here. Mary, did you have anything to report? I did want to mention that we're going to try and have hybrid meetings when we resume our in-person meetings so that those of y'all who are not in the valley can still participate with us.
I don't have anything to report tonight, Donna.
Okay, very good. But I'm glad you're here, even if you are long distance. And okay, and that comes to me and the annual meeting. Our 2 chapters met together a couple of times before we actually had our first meeting with the state. We've had a couple of meetings with the state now, and the state has started with subcommittee meetings. So we're getting a lot of people involved in a lot of different areas. I had one subcommittee meeting Friday and 3 this morning. So I'm getting lots of volunteer hours in, folks. Y'all can be on a co-chair of a committee and get volunteer hours too if you need some volunteer hours. But yeah, so we're moving right along. We have sent out a call for presentations, like Becky was talking about, maybe a presentation about our Vanny Cook project. Since it went over 3 years, she has some excellent slides and information about that. So there's a whole list of presentations we had. Field trip proposals have gone out to a lot of our partner organizations to encourage them to submit for field trips, and contact of our sponsors has started. Um, I think that cover. Oh, and the vendors. We're going to have a meeting tomorrow on vendors. So we're moving right along with the state meeting. And as of this afternoon, when I asked, they still had not made the determination whether there would be any virtual component to it yet or not. Okay, and with that, we're still following up with our in-person meeting. We thought we had something lined up, and then all of a sudden we were told, well, we're not sure about letting y'all have access to our internet. So we're going to have a further discussion on that topic and see if we can talk them into letting us use their internet access or not. So we can have those hybrid meetings, at least through the summer. And then I think the only other announcement is our next board meeting is June 5th. All members are welcome to any of our board meetings. They are open meetings. If you ever want to attend one of our meetings, it's usually the first Monday of the month. Every once in a while, there'll be a holiday or something that falls on Monday. We'll postpone it a week. Otherwise, you all are always welcome. Just ask Joseph for an invite and you can join us. And our next general meeting will be June 19th. Now, did anybody have any other announcements or comments?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, this is Mary Tamez and Arnold. We're on the call together.
Yes.
We are both members of the Friends of the Wildlife Corridor as well. And the Friends are joining with another group called the Defenders of the Wildlife. And there's a project coming up in October, and it's called Real Reforestation. And that's going to happen on October the 14th. And the the two groups are going to participate with the Santa Ana Wildlife Refuge and be involved in planting. I think it's thousands of plants, but I'm not sure. I was not involved last year.
Last time they had it was a 3-day event. This time they're going to do it all in one day on a Saturday, the 14th.
Yeah, and so we're reaching out to get as many volunteers from as many groups as we can. It's a pretty big event and they want to get it all done in one day. So
It's going to be
what you might do is, you saw Susan Coleman on here a minute ago. If you would email her with the contact of who we contact to say we're interested in volunteering, that is our big solar our eclipse day for our Master Naturalist annual meeting, but not all of our members may be going to the annual meeting. So they may still want a volunteer opportunity during the meeting time. Like I say, our annual meeting is that same weekend. Or encompasses that same weekend.
Okay.
But certainly. And did you see Susan's
I see her on here, but I don't see her.
Susan, do you see the chat room? I was wondering if Susan could put her email in the chat room.
Please.
And that way you could contact her. Because like I say, I think that sounds wonderful. It's something we would want to be involved in. And I do know that not all of our members are going to be winding up going to the annual meeting. So this would be an excellent opportunity for them to get some volunteer.
My email, I just put it in chat.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the information.
Sure. Now, what part of what I'm doing also, and my husband, is we're reaching out to school groups or Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. So anybody that any of you can think of who might be interested in participating, they can contact me. Here's my email. And I'll be happy to send them information on it. And we really would appreciate it. I think it's going to be fun. It's just going to be a lot of work. Yeah.
It'll take place, I think it's 1.5 miles east of the Santa Ana Wildlife Refuge,
Right.
right in that area.
Well, and that's not going to be for a while, so we will
Yeah.
put that on our list of future volunteer opportunities so people can see it more than once. And then if you wind up getting some flyer information, if they do a little brochure or flyer that we can put out electronically, we can also put that on our Facebook page and our listserv. So
Oh,
we'll
I would
certainly
really
share.
appreciate that. Yes, that would be great. In fact, if they want, I'll put the flyer together and then that'll probably help us a lot.
We'll be having another board meeting on the 17th, so hopefully we'll get more details by then also.
Okay, very good.
And I'll send them on. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
All right, thank you. Appreciate you bringing that to our attention. That's a great opportunity. Did
Is
anyone?
that the actual date of the eclipse, Donna?
Yes, that Saturday the 14th is the day.
They may want to reschedule that because a lot of kids are going to be out there. And it might scare kids. Who knows? They need to reassess the date.
Oh, the other
I think
organizations.
historically it's been held that weekend. And I
Right,
think
but
that's
this
why
is the
it's
first
scheduled
time
like
in
that.
history that we've had the eclipse come through here.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think they had that in mind right now.
Well, this is early in the morning, though. I think they're going to just work early in the morning.
okay, so yeah, the eclipse
yeah,
is scheduled around 11 or so, I think.
Okay.
All right.
Huh. Okay. But you know what? I'm going to bring it up.
You should, yeah, just in case they think that might affect it. So.
All right. Okay.
All
Thank you.
right. Oh, thank you again. And I appreciate the volunteering you have been doing. I've seen you at events and things. Thank you. Both.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Did anyone else have anything to share with us? Okay, if not, I have that it's just about 8:15, and Javier went a little bit longer, but I think if we give an hour for his advanced training, and then 0.75, 3/4 of an hour for the rest of the meeting, which is basically the business. Like I say, he ran over a few minutes, but not enough to give him a whole quarter hour. But we'll let you have that other quarter hour for the business because we started that right after that. So 1.0 hours for advanced training and 0.75 hours for chapter business. And thank you everyone for participating. And if y'all ever have questions, you can always email me, call me. I think my information's out there. If not, it's probably on the membership list that we have online. And thank you all. Have a good few days here coming up. Maybe we'll get a little rain, but not flooding. Thank you, everyone.